That is, the Bidcorp Corporation released some stellar full-year financial results today. The group, which operates in 5 continents and is listed on the JSE, says operating conditions were difficult in the past year as it has to contend with pandemic restrictions, supply chain disruptions and rapid inflation driven by the fallout from the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Bernard Berson is the Bidcorp Group CEO, and he joins me now to unpack their performance in the past year. Bernard, thank you very much for joining us. The group performed quite well, revenues rising 28% to 147 billion rands, while trading profit rose 57%. It's been a great year, but it has not come without its difficulties.
Well, thank you very much. And yes, it's been a very interesting year. And when you talk about the comparatives, you're comparing to FY21, which was also COVID impacted. So we prefer to look at our performance compared to FY19, which was the last year that we had that wasn't impacted by COVID type restrictions. And we're pleased to say we beat that year. Our performance is better than that year. And we're very proud of what our people around the world have achieved under difficult circumstances. The market has rebounded very, very quickly, and we have been able to take advantage of that and ride the wave. But notwithstanding that, there have been some very difficult challenges during the year.
Bernard, you said in your results that the past year has been difficult. In the 35 countries in which you operate, you have, however, been facing some difficulties in filling vacant posts in the factory floor with drivers in some parts of the world. Some people will hear that and wonder, in a country like South Africa, for example, with a 33.9% unemployment rate, how you have managed to actually fill those vacant posts in those markets in which you found this difficulty.
Well, we've actually found that difficulty in almost all of our markets. There are a few exceptions, and South Africa, unfortunately, is one of those. And it's been very, very tough. So there has been an incredible shortage of skilled workers, drivers, warehouse operatives, etc. And that has got worse as the year got on and economies sped up. So it has put a real challenge on our management teams, on our existing workforces. But fortunately, we have managed to guide our way through that. The service levels, unfortunately, have been slightly impacted, but we're relatively happy to say that we must probably doing better than a lot of our competitors who faced with similar challenges. Many countries which we operate are seeing full employment, unemployment rates of 2%, 3%, which in fact is full employment. So it's a real challenge at the moment, and I suppose it's a good problem to have, but it is a challenge nevertheless.
Inflation in South Africa is up 7.8%, Bernard, in July, according to Stats SA. That data released earlier today, largely driven by food inflation. Let's talk about the trends that you are seeing globally, about how the Ukraine war has driven rapid inflation, not only in South Africa, but globally.
Well, this inflation is a global issue, and food price inflation certainly is a global issue. I think from where we sit, the positive news is we saw it peak maybe about a month ago. And that may take time for it to filter through the statistics and be spoken about. But there's no doubt that the price of a lot of commodities, oil in particular, cooking oil, has dropped quite dramatically. Some other products have also dropped quite dramatically. So they're not down to the levels they were pre-Ukraine war, but they certainly aren't at the peak that they were at either. So we are pretty hopeful that we're going to see a trend downwards in the rate of inflation. We don't think we're going to see deflation, but we're certainly not going to see the same rate of price increases we have witnessed over the last 6 months.
With all the difficulties that you have faced and also articulated in your financial results, you have paid a tribute to your employees for staying the course, particularly since the advent of COVID-19. But you've had to actually pivot and change the way you do a business. For example, in areas such as New Zealand, you have decided to cease operations in spite of the fact that you are actually making money there.
No, no, I don't know. That's not correct. I mean, New Zealand's a major market for us, and continues to be, and it's a very good market, and we've got a great market position. We're exiting some customers, and New Zealand, we're exiting a relatively large pizza chain, because we've actually got capacity constraints. So we'd rather deal with customers where you've got a mutually beneficial trading relationship, as opposed to ones that fill a warehouse without an adequate return to ourselves. So, we're not pulling out of any markets. We're very committed to all the markets we're in. We're seeing great growth in almost all the markets, like I said before. And the business is in great shape in all the markets. And in terms of the pivot, I think our business is following the same trajectory that it did pre-COVID. During COVID, obviously, our customer base was severely impacted, and we did have to pivot and try and find other areas of revenue, which we did very well. And we've unwound those now, and we're back to our core focus of being a food service distributor.
And of course, your strategy is on the wholesaling of food and related products to the eating out of home market. How do you intend to achieve this strategy?
Well, that's what we do. We sell to restaurants and coffee shops and caterers and hospitals and prisons and cruise ships and airlines, anywhere where somebody consumes a meal out of home. It's a growing market segment. It has been for many, many years. Obviously, COVID set that back a year or two. But we've seen people come back with a vengeance in terms of spending money out and going to restaurants and getting back to the life that they once enjoyed, and socializing and traveling and doing all those wonderful good things.
Bernard, right now the markets are actually uncertain about where the global economy is going. There are fears that a recession is afoot, and we are seeing the markets on the floor in the red. What is your outlook economically, globally? And when you factor in the fact that the Ukraine war is still ongoing, how do you see that impacting on your performance in the coming months?
Look, we're not immune to what happens in the world. But likewise, out of every situation, there's opportunity. And we feel that we're nimble, we're a decentralized business, we've got a great experienced management team, and we can adapt to the circumstances as they change. All I can say, and I'm no economist, is if you look at our trading sales, our revenue for the 8 weeks of this financial year compared to the same 8 weeks last financial year, we're 30% up in constant currency. So clearly there's a little bit of a disconnect between this talk about the R word and what's actually happening on the ground. And hopefully that disconnect does stay, and some of the negative news is overblown and overemphasized. But like I said, we're not economists, and my personal view is I think there'll be a soft landing as opposed to a major crack in global economic conditions.
Bernard Berson is the CEO at Bidcorp, the company issuing some stellar financial results, the best results that they've had since they were spun out of Bidvest. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. Well, on that note, let's take a closer look at how the local markets on the JSE actually closed today.